So hello everyone and welcome to the May 21st special council meeting for the Village of Lytton. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones, and allow council to begin the proceedings. Just to let you know, we're all being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If anyone is looking for a video recording of this meeting or a past meeting, you can go to the Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting.
Thank you. So I call this special council meeting of Wednesday, May the 21st to order at 3:16 p.m. Here in the hall this afternoon, we have Councillor McCann, Councillor Toss, myself, Mayor O'Connor, and CAO Marquette. Online, we have Councillor Lightfoot and Councillor Michelle. So here we are. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands, on the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Entrecateton people. We'll begin by adopting the agenda for this afternoon's meeting, and I'd like a motion to do so. Councillor Lightfoot, seconder.
I'll second.
Sorry, Councillor McCann. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Next, we will, we'll move right into the delegations and presentations, and we have the 2024 audited financial statements are going to be presented by Mario from BDO. And welcome, Mario.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. So, as mentioned, we are here today to present the audited financial statements for the Village of Lytton for the year ended December 31st, 2024. And I will just get my screen share going. Okay, we should have everybody able to see that now. So the goal here in the open meeting is to go through the statements and kind of give you a sense of the operating results, and also give council an opportunity to answer or ask any questions that you have, whether it's on the financial statements or also in terms of how we conducted the audit ourselves. And this is an important meeting because while myself, through my team, we work directly with your management team to get the financial statements built and ultimately express our opinion. The community charter requires mayor and council to appoint an auditor, and I operate at the pleasure of council. So this is your opportunity to go through the statements with me and ensure that you're satisfied with the work. And before we start going through the numbers themselves, we'll go through a couple of the rules of engagement, because the manager's responsibility page is a very important page in this financial statement, because it outlines the role of everybody in the room, whether in person or virtually.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I wonder if we could make it a bit bigger. It's hard to. Perfect. Thank you. That's great.
There we go. Perfect. Okay, so manager's responsibility. This goes through everyone's role to play in getting the statements approved and out to the province. The preparation of the statements are the responsibility of management, and ultimately mayor and council is required to approve the financial statements. Management is also responsible for maintaining a system of internal controls to ensure that there not only good information goes into your accounting system, so that good information comes out and goes into these statements, but also to make sure that your assets are safeguarded. Mayor and council is responsible for making sure that management is fulfilling its responsibilities for financial reporting and, as discussed, the ultimate approval. My job is to come in and conduct an audit and express an opinion. And so we are still this year going to be issuing a qualified opinion. So other than what we'll talk about in a moment, these statements do present fairly the results for the Village of Lytton for the year ended December 31st, 2024. Now, the qualified opinion has changed this year, and in a good way. Part of when we had the fire, a number of years ago, one of the items was that we weren't able to get all the records so that we could conduct our audit fully. So we had to modify our opinion. That has now come off. So there are no issues with records or where we feel that this year's numbers or last year's numbers aren't accurate anymore, or have the potential where there's information that we don't have. So that has come off, which is good news. What still remains, though, is that because we're still in the recovery and rebuilding phases, we don't know fully all the damage under the ground. And also, there was a new accounting standard relating to asset retirement obligations, which means that we have to recognize if there's contamination that creates a liability to the village, we have to recognize that on the financial statements. We haven't been able to look at that because we aren't far enough down the road of recovery yet for those. But in terms of those are more accounting exercises and dealing with what's happened in the past with your capital. But in terms of operations, these statements are good now and we have no reservations in that manner. So I do want to highlight that and was very happy when we were able to take that off this year. So getting into the results and starting on your statement of financial position. So a snapshot of all of your financial assets, your liabilities, and your surplus at the end of the year. And so, again, being with where you're at in terms of recovery and rebuild, no surprise that we're still seeing some very strong, cash positions. Our total cash that we have and cash that's going to be coming in went from 19.7 million to 20.8 million this year. So it remained fairly flat. But what did change is our deferred revenue, or our total liabilities did drop this year. And so when we look at our total financial assets less our liabilities, we come to the net financial assets, and we could see that we have $7.7 million. Last year, we're up to 10.7 million. So a $3 million increase in our net position that we have. So if we settled all of our liabilities and spent all our grants, we'd still have you'd still have $10.7 million, which is really your reserve funds that you have. And then also that would and we have that $3 million increase year over year. So, we're still seeing a financially strong position, which is allowing you to continue down with all the work that has to still be done. When we move on to the statement of operations, we see that our revenue did decrease this year. Last year, we were at $19.7 million, down to $7.6 million, but up from a budget of $2 million. And of course, last year, we still had significant recovery funding coming in, 14.6 million down to 2.7 million this year, which is expected given the phases of where you're at. But I also want to highlight that, when we look at your recovery funding, we see that 2.7 million is not budgeted, as is the recovery services at $2.1 million in expenses. So if that revenue didn't come in, we wouldn't have had these expenses here. So no real variances against your budget other than your recovery funding here. And then $3 million of insurance proceeds that came in this year. Everything else was very tight to budget, and so no real concerns there on the revenue side. On the expense side, as we can see, with the exception of your recovery, if we take that $2.1 million out, expenses would have come in at 2.2 million, slightly over budget, but again, no major concerns there. And, at this stage, we just want to make sure that we're managing our expenses and that we're satisfied that we're getting good value out of the work that we are doing. Moving forward to the next page, we have our statement of changes in net financial assets. And this is the page where I can get you close to seeing how you did against your budget overall if we back out, all of the noise of, revenues, expenses, and reserve transfers. So the plan was to have an accounting surplus of $121,000, which, even though you plan for a balanced budget, acknowledging that when you're preparing your budget, it's not prepared in the same format as the financial statements because your budget includes things as expenses like your capital projects, whereas on the statements, they're considered to be assets, and transfers in and out of reserves are revenues and expenses in the budget, which they don't show up the transfers on these statements. But the plan was for $121,000 surplus, and then you were going to spend $175,000 in capital projects, and then the residual $50,000 deficit would have been a transfer from reserve funds. What happened is because we received those additional insurance proceeds of $3 million that weren't budgeted, we ended up with a surplus of $3.3 million. We did spend $475,000 on capital. And it comes to that net change in our financial position of $2.99 million, which is what we talked about 2 pages earlier. And that money got moved to your reserve funds, and we'll talk about where that went as we slide down into the notes. Now, as we get into the notes, a couple of stops that I want to make. And the first is on the deferred revenue note. And so this is all the grant money that you've received that is still yet to be spent. And so we can see that we still have, the emergency grant of 1.5 million. There's the $2.1 million grant received in 2023 for your 2025 and 2026 core funding. There's still some wildfire response monies remaining. And then we have the sewer grants in terms of the last big ticket items that you have here. But this page is detailing all that grant money that has not been recognized and not been spent yet. And as we move further down, just why we talked about the reserve funds a bit, and I just wanted to go through that as well. So when we look at your reserve funds, they did increase from 3.6 million to $7.6 million, which, as I mentioned earlier, was a result of additional having that accounting surplus this year. When we look at it, a couple of movements that we have, this core operation fund, this is the 2.1 million that was initially received for the first 3 years of recovery. That money has now been spent, and then next year you could start using the second $2.1 million tranche. We have the insurance reserve that has been established, the recovery operating reserve, and we're also seeing the gas tax, our community works fund reserve, increasing. And so those are the bigger ticket items. And I know that council has been spending a lot of time discussing the reserve, so I won't belabor that unless there's any questions that you have on them. And then lastly, I just wanted to also highlight that when we look at your cash surplus, that $10 million I was talking about earlier, we have 7.6 in reserves, and we have 3.1 million in unrestricted funds. And the unrestricted funds is what management has that's not encumbered and restricted either by council or by statute to execute on the budget. And we have $3.1 million there for management. And so I will stop and just ask if there's any questions on the financial statements today.
Did we? Thank you.
Councillor Thompson. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Did we have the liabilities factored in last year with the what's underground? I can't remember that. Like you brought that up with the
new accounting standard?
Yeah, and that is to do with toxicity and liability of the village. Can you explain
Mario,
that?
can you explain the new accounting standard a little bit more? Because we haven't
Sorry.
talked about that at all.
Okay. So through the mayor to councillor, so last year the new standard that came in, and this qualification was there last year because it would have been the first year for adoption. And so what this standard does is it says that, and it's for any obligation for you to remediate your assets at the end of life, you're required to determine what that liability is and set it up now. The most common example is asbestos in buildings. That if you have buildings, you have to, when you do a renovation or when you tear it down, there's work to be done on the asbestos. We have to set that up on the books now. So given where you were at, we don't know what's going to be there yet. You want to get further down. And I would hope that by the time that we get to adopting the standard, that there shouldn't be much there, because a lot of the recovery work, you'll be dealing with a lot of these as well. So it's really twofold why the decision is there to just not adopt the standard at this time and just say we didn't adopt it and tell everybody that we didn't, which is okay. One is because we don't have all the information, and two, by the time we're done, you're probably not going to have any. So those are the reasons why.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Thompson
or O'Connor.
Yeah.
The 3.5 million or 4 million, I think it was, for insurance proceeds. What was that for? I don't.
That's a combination of the cash value of the buildings and the contents.
So it's the 7 minus 4 we've taken out already.
That is the 4 we've taken out. There's still a surplus amount that when we replace assets, we can request the replacement value.
Gotcha.
Right now, we've received just the cash value.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Understood.
Are there any other questions regarding this? Councillor Toss.
Where was the OCP grant money from? I think there was a 80 or 100 and something in there.
That's money that we got from the province of BC as part of, I think the announcement is it's like the Housing Accelerator Fund or something, isn't it? Is that the right term?
It's
Not sure.
it's tied into the Housing Accelerator Fund, but this was that you have to apply for separately. This was specific to give local governments the ability to start reworking their processes and their plans in order to be ready to apply for those funds.
Thank you. That's great.
So we requested if we could use ours for the OCP.
Perfect. Yeah.
And that was approved.
Thank you.
Okay, any others? Anybody online? No, it doesn't look like it, Mario.
Okay.
So thank you for that
Thank-
presentation. And we do have a recommended motion to approve these financial statements. Councillor McCann will move and a seconder, Councillor Lightfoot. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Great. Okay, item number 5 on our agenda is public comment, and I'm going to turn it over to CO Storoshenko. There she is.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. So members of the public are now invited to comment on matters related to the agenda. So if you'd like to speak, we ask that you please use your raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen and then click raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name. You'll be asked to unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, say your address, and the agenda item number you're speaking to. If there's anyone that'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I'll call for a second time. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function now. And there's nothing online. Your worship, is there anyone there at Parish Hall?
Yes, nobody here this afternoon.
All right, so thank you. That completes the public comment portion of the meeting. Back to you, your worship.
All right, so we move on to item number 7, which means we're moving into closed meeting and we are ending the open portion. So we need a motion to move into closed meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Toss. Seconder. Councillor Lightfoot. All those in favor? Carried. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Corporate Officer.
Thank you very much, Mayor O'Connor. So that concludes the public portion of the special council meeting of May 21st, 2025. We ask that the public and staff please remove yourself from the meeting as we go into closed session. Thank you for attending and have a wonderful afternoon. I invite council to take a quick recess while I reset the meeting to closed.
Thank you.